Hello, how is everyone? How's your last week been? Mine has been full of various emotions. Being female, that's quite common. So yeah, we've had a bit of a hormonal ailing the last week. Not too bad, not been my worst, but we roll with it because, as we know, it'll come again soon. Have you all listened to last week's episode? What did you think of story time? My little story about my neighbour. I don't have any updates this week because it tends to happen every other week rather than every week most times. So there's been no laughter, no visitors, no calling cards. All has been quiet. So we'll keep our eye on that one. Or have any of yous got any input? Do you think something else is happening? Let me know. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if they're still talking. One of my neighbours thinks they fell out, so we will see. Anyway, in England, kids are all starting to go back to school this week. How are you all finding that one? Are you glad? Are you emotional? Have you got children that are just starting school, or have they left and just got the results for their exams? I hope whatever your situation, all is well. If it's not, there's always somewhere that you can turn to and ask for advice or help. And if you don't know where to go, give me a wee message and I will help as much as I can. I'm changing the topic of this week's podcast, which I'll explain. So I was going to do a mixture of different things in this week's, but I have decided to focus on grief. My auntie died today through the night, and she was my mum's sister, the oldest out of all the brothers and sisters on that side of the family. So knowing that there's going to be many people grieving within my family, I thought I would just give some pointers, some tips for if you're going through grief, if you know someone that's grieving, if you know the time is coming for somebody close to you, then yeah, let's have a wee chit chat about that. So grief can affect people in different ways. It's not always that you're just sitting crying, which is obviously one of the most common signs. Obviously when we hear someone's passed, not everyone, and I think it also depends on how close you were to the person and what type of nature you've got within yourself. Some people deal with things in a different way, but obviously we know that a lot of people do break down and there's lots of tears when it comes to people passing. But grief doesn't just happen when someone has passed away. You can always also grieve who a person once was. So that tends to happen when there's maybe like dementia or something like that, or if there's some sort of brain damage. You can also grieve a relationship. So if you've been in a relationship for however long, doesn't have to be many years, it can be months. Everybody feels emotions in a different way and at a different time scale. So you can grieve a relationship because you thought it was going to be one thing and it's turned out to be something else. You can grieve if you find out you maybe can't conceive naturally, so you can grieve the children that you thought you may have had. And I know some people will think that's ridiculous. It really isn't, unless you've been in that situation, which personally I obviously haven't, because you all know I've got 2 boys. But there's many people that have, and it is a grieving process before you then decide what path you go down. Where does your journey then take you? But let's talk about the most obvious, I suppose, and when someone passes. We'll start with that. Have you been in that situation recently or at all? Maybe you haven't. Maybe you're one of the lucky ones who currently hasn't lost anybody. or maybe not someone that's super close to you. I find personally, I don't always grieve in the sense, like I said at the beginning, where I'm in floods of tears. I have done with one person, one of my uncles who I was very, very close to. Other people I've kind of took in my stride, if you want to put it that way. But again, I'm one of these people that can talk myself round. Obviously, I've learned that through my mental health journey. I can, I suppose, talk to myself, if you want to say it like that, because it kind of is almost like having a conversation with yourself. You're trying to rationalise things in your head, rationalise your thoughts. Think about the memories, think about the good times. Think about, say for example, it was a grandparent. You maybe have many memories growing up. Maybe you didn't meet them until you were a bit older, but you might still have memories. There's sometimes a way to comprehend it in your head, if you want to use that terminology, especially if it's been someone who's been suffering in pain or with some sort of illness, like it could have been cancer, potentially some sort of heart disease. What quality of life did they have leading up to that? Some will still have a good quality of life, and there's a lot of times where it's not always the actual illness that they are sort of continue to live through. Sometimes it can take one bug, one something to come along, and because their immune system's so low, then that can sometimes take them. I've seen that happening in the past as well. So we need to be careful when we know someone that is very ill and they maybe do have a low immune system. But how do you work through your grief? There's many ways you can, and you'll do it in your way, and you'll find your way in the right time. Nobody's saying that you have to do this within a week, a month, whatever. Grief can start straight away. It can also come months later, sometimes even years down the line. Grief can last a week, it can last months, it can last years. Again, it's all down to the person that's passed and what they meant to you. You will also find that you've got people who have maybe lost contact over time. You've not just got the grief, you've also got, they're grieving the fact that they lost all that time with that person. But you've got to remember that there was a reason for that happening. And none of us can turn back the clocks. But what we can do is think about that for our future and try and avoid that happening to anybody else that you want to have a relationship with. And I don't just mean a loving relationship. It can be friendship, it can be with your children, it can be with your parents, your siblings, whoever. If you want somebody in your life, but they're not currently in your life, don't be too stubborn, because life is short. But yeah, how to work through grief. First of all, you need to give yourself time. Give yourself time to process what's happened. Give yourself time to think about that person. Because you've got to remember, if it is someone that's passed, you've also got funerals, etc. Your time to say goodbye. How do you want to say goodbye? Do you want to say goodbye at the funeral? Because there's no law to say that that's how you have to say goodbye. If you don't feel that that's where you say goodbye, you've maybe got a special place, you can do it there, and nobody can judge you for it. As long as you're comfortable with your decision and you're happy with your decision. Happy might be the wrong choosing of words, some people might say, but you get what I'm saying. If you're happy with that decision and it feels right to you, that's what you do. We need to keep an eye also on the people round about us, because if you're grieving, there's obviously people round about us grieving, and they may be grieving a different way. They might be finding it harder. Like myself personally, I get on with things. My mum would say, hard-hearted bitch, or sometimes she says I've got a swinging brick, or I'm just ice cold. I am none of the above. I hide my emotions quite a lot, and again, that's due to my past. It's due to having to protect myself during my mental health journey. So I've found how I protect myself and how I work through things myself. I don't let many people in. The people I do let in will know exactly how I'm feeling. The people that I don't necessarily let in will not. Or they might get a small glimpse. You can keep a diary, if you want to call it a diary, a journal of how you're feeling. Keep notes, keep checking in with yourself. Ask yourself how you're feeling. And I'm not saying you have to do this every 10 minutes, every hour. You don't have to be writing down every emotion that you're feeling, but maybe even just once a day or even once a week. Write down how that week's gone for you. Keep an eye on it, because if you are very, very low and it goes on for a prolonged length of time, then you maybe want to speak to somebody. I would say firstly check in with your doctor, because they'll be able to tell you if, in inverted commas, this is normal, because your prolonged length of time may be different from someone else's or a professional's. If it goes on for months and months and you're still not finding a way to get over things, then yeah, it's time to talk. There's other things you can do. You can create new memories. You could be going to, like I said earlier, you might want to say goodbye at a place that's special to you and the person that's passed. So maybe you want to visit that on a semi-regular basis. You might want to talk to them. You could go to their graveside, or if they've got ashes scattered, or if they maybe have ashes in your house, you could maybe be talking to them. But talking is the big thing. Talking or writing things down, because then you're getting that emotion out there and it's not being kept in. So it's like you're not building up that weight on your shoulders. You are expressing how you're feeling, and the more you express, then the easier it will be to kind of go through the process. If it's somebody that's been in your life every day and you don't know how to move forward, then it's time to start writing down or looking at new ways to fill your day. And you might be able to do it on your own, you might need other people. But think about what you would love to do, or potentially was there something that the two of you were going to do together and you just didn't get the chance. Maybe you could do that in their memory. Just don't stop being you. Don't stop your life because someone else is unfortunately not here to continue with theirs. As I said earlier on, there's different types of grief. So you've got people who potentially can't naturally conceive, and it could be because of something with one person's body, it could be with both your bodies, it could be that you are maybe in a same-sex relationship and you don't know where to go. And it can be hard because, as we spoke about in the last couple of episodes, growing up, all we ever hear is, oh, when you grow up and get married and have children, oh, when you grow up, oh, wait till you've got kids. That's always thrown in our faces, and yeah, some people don't want children, and that's absolutely fine. There's also people out there who are desperately wanting children and potentially can't naturally, maybe because of, for example, cancer treatment. I know that's one thing that can sort of prevent. And there obviously is different routes you can go down. You've got surrogacy or egg donation, sperm donation, all these things, but all these things can cost a lot of money. You've also got adoption or fostering, but again, it's jumping through all these hoops, and sometimes when you're so desperate you just want it now, and you're seeing all these people round about you potentially having children or talking about having children as if it's so easy, and you know that for you it's not. So how do you work through it? What's the plan? Have you come up with a plan? I would start with talking to like-minded people. Find out how they've processed it. So you can get, obviously you've got social media and you've got all these groups, especially on the likes of Facebook. You'll have groups for everything. So you maybe have, say for example, you're looking at surrogacy. You'll have Facebook groups. I would tend to try and find one within your country, because sometimes sort of laws and regulations and whatever are different in other countries. So I would try and focus on your country. Then if it's not a possibility within your country, you could then maybe look at other countries and see how you can go then. If it's adoption or fostering, there is many sort of groups that you can go to face for these things. There's charities. Again, you'll have Facebook groups. Just be careful that you don't take anybody's word as gospel with any situation that you look up online, because what's online isn't always the truth. I would take a note of what you're seeing online or what you're hearing online or from others, and research and research a wee bit more, just to make sure you've got all your facts right. Like I said, somebody can tell one person a story, then they tell somebody else, and by the time it's got to the end of the line, that story's changed. It's grown arms and legs. So that can happen with anything. I don't know how many times I've said to my son, don't believe everything you see or hear online or whatever. And he's like, no, it's true. And then he comes back to me like 3 months later and he's like, oh, Mum, did I tell you that that wasn't actually true? Are you kidding me on? I think I told you that months ago. But apparently Mum doesn't know best. Mum's just old and knows nothing. I mean, I remember the days. I still tell my mum she knows nothing. My mum gets serious verbal abuse from all the time. And I don't mean actual verbal abuse, but she does, yeah. My mum's the type of person that she's so easy to wind up that you can't not wind her up. And when me and one of her sisters get together, she hates it, absolutely hates it, because we just bounce off each other. And yeah, me and my wee auntie Rosemary, God love her, she's my sidekick, I'm her sidekick, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I was telling a story, sorry for going off topic, but I'll just tell you this one quickly. I was telling my cousin, who's my auntie Rosemary's daughter, this morning, that I was talking to her. I can't remember, it was a few months ago. I was at her house, we were going to visit my mum in hospital, and I was picking her up, and I said, Auntie Rosemary, she's like, what? I says, I think I came out the wrong room. And she's looking at me and she's, do you know that way you can just tell that somebody's like, oh no, here we go, another one of Aileen's stories. She's like, what do you mean? I think I should have come out of your room because I'm more like you than I'm like Helen. And she just laughed. Everybody laughs. Whenever I say anything, nobody takes me seriously, ever. In my family, they all just go, okay, Aileen. And just let me rabbit on, as I'm doing the now. But yeah, research is a big thing when it comes to these sort of situations. But also, if you can feel that it's affecting you personally, emotionally, and it's keeping you up at night or whatever else, it could be time for you to talk to somebody. And I don't mean somebody that's in the same situation. I mean, like, it could be a life coach, it could be a counsellor. It depends on how it's affecting you. But sometimes speaking to a professional who might be able to look outside the box, and I say this all the time, sometimes we can see, and I don't just mean professionals, even your friends or your family, if you're not in the situation, sometimes you can find another solution that's, we might think it's right in front of your eyes, but for the person that's going through it, they're so engrossed in what they're trying to find out or try to figure their way through that they don't see that solution necessarily, and then you point it out and they're like, oh yeah, I should have seen that. Which, listen, we're all here to help each other. None of us will ever sail through life without a single problem in our life. So if you can help somebody else, I'm sure they'll repay you back if you ever need help. And I think I just need help to get through life on a daily basis. I don't know how I got to this age. I don't know how my boys got to the age they're at, with me solely being the parent. But we did it. And I'm sure even my mother didn't think we would get here. And it's not something she would deny. So, Who do you go to for grief? You initially want to speak to your GP. You want to be 100% honest with them. You want to ask them, I suppose, again, is this normal, in inverted commas? No grief is abnormal, let's put it that way. Everybody's grieving process is going to be different, so you may grieve differently for a long lost relative than what you would grieve for your own parents. You may grieve differently for your friend's mum and dad than what you do for your friend. You, like I said, your first port of call is going to be going to your doctor, if you don't, especially if you don't feel as if you've got anybody within your own circle that you can speak to. And then your doctor will obviously ask you what's been going on, your sort of thoughts you've been thinking, how long's it been going on, how's your sleeping, how's your eating, how's your fluid intake. All these can contribute to the way you're feeling. If you're not getting enough sleep, you're obviously going to be very tired throughout the day, your brain's not going to be quite on point. If you're not putting the nourishment into your body, the fuel into your body, which again, your food, your liquid intake, for example your water, this all fuels your body, this all helps your brain work, and when your brain's working, the rest of your body's going to start working. If your grief is affecting any of these, then obviously you do need to speak to somebody, especially if, again, it's been going on for a prolonged length of time. Your doctor may suggest you speaking to a grief counsellor, and the amount of sessions you would need would depend on you as a person. I can't say, 5 sessions and you're going to be, in inverted commas, fixed. You're going to be back to, and again, inverted commas, normal. Everybody's process is different. Some people carry on doing their sort of counselling or therapy for months, years, because other things might crop up throughout the process. Some people won't need anywhere near as long as that. I've got many clients who'll come back and forth to me. I've got many clients that will stay with me. They've been with me for a long period of time. Some people will dip in and out. Whatever your experience with your therapy is absolutely fine as long as it's working for you. They're not necessarily going to prescribe you anything straight away. So if you think you're going to go to the GP, they're going to give you a wee magic pill, that's not necessarily how it's going to work. They may give you suggestions on how to help yourself that doesn't involve medication or therapy, and they maybe want you to try that for X amount of time, because if you've only been grieving for like 3-4 weeks, then it's not been long enough for you to have fully gone through your process. It's also not long enough to say that it's affecting your mental health in a way that they would be concerned necessarily. They tend to wait a bit longer, and again, every GP will be different, especially if your GP knows you from going to regular appointments. They'll know you as a person and what you're normally like and what changes that they can see. So yeah, once you get down the line a wee bit, they might, if it's still affecting you, so if it's affecting your sleep, they may give you a one-off sleeping tablet. They're not going to prescribe you that on a long-term basis. They may prescribe a low dosage of an antidepressant or something similar, an anti-anxiety, something like that. It will all depend on what's going on with you and how it's affecting you. But that magic pill isn't as magic as what you think it's going to be. First of all, it can take a minimum 4 to 6 weeks to get into your system, so you're not going to see a huge difference anytime soon. That pill's not going to fix what's going on in your head, what you're thinking. The only way to get over that is by talking, and talking can sound hard most of the time, but again, like I say it so many times, if you can get a counsellor or a therapist that you can click with, because we've all got different personalities and we all get on with different people. Like, you might get on with somebody that I maybe wouldn't, or they might not get on with me, etc. So if you find a therapist that you click with, that's going to make your process so much easier. But always give your therapist a chance. Don't just think after one appointment, if you weren't sure about them, that you're never going back again, because first impressions aren't always lasting impressions. Sometimes it takes us a little while to feel a bit comfortable, especially in that situation. Obviously, we spoke earlier on about, or I spoke, sorry, should I say, seeing as I'm sitting here talking to myself, or talking to my mic, although I'm talking to you, but talking to myself. Comprehend? That there's different types of grief. So I'd mentioned, obviously, if somebody's passed. I've mentioned if you're struggling to conceive. And I said earlier on at the beginning that potentially losing a relationship, losing that person, losing that love of your life maybe, can feel like a grieving process. And nobody can tell you that you shouldn't feel the way you're feeling because of the relationship, especially if it's not been a very long-term relationship. I'm one of these people, I wear my heart on my sleeve and I don't deny it at all. So I can sometimes fall quite hard, but I don't always show it. Very much of make a joke of things. And it's not a test on others, but I just don't, although I can feel it, I don't always want to show it until I know where things are going. So if you're the same as me, and you've maybe been with somebody 2 or 3 months, and you fell head over heels with that person, then yeah, your feelings are valid, regardless. Nobody can say because you haven't been with them for 5 years or 10 years, you shouldn't feel the way you're feeling and just move on, or nobody can tell you when's the right time to start dating again. I'll give you a little confession time. I have been single for 6 years. Now, some people might be like, oh my god, that's a long time. It is a long time in the grand scheme of things, but remember, we're in lockdown for quite a while as well. But that's my choice. It's not because I can't find anybody or nobody's good enough or anything like that. That was my choice because that was a long-term relationship, and that was a person I thought I was going to spend the rest of my days with, I suppose. And it's not that nobody matches up to him, because in hindsight, I don't want anybody to match up to him. I am the worst at picking relationships. I won't admit it. I'm blooming awful. My mum says I go from bad to worse. I'm too trusting. I don't know. I'm trying to make excuses up for myself here. I'm just digging a deeper hole. But anyway, the reason I took that time was, one, I've got 2 boys to think of as well. I've never been one to have different relationships and introducing everybody to my boys and blah blah blah. Never done that. And I'm not saying you can't or you shouldn't. You do what you want to do, but it just isn't my preference. So I've been with this person for quite a number of years, and I just thought, nah, something just wasn't sitting right. It wasn't gut feeling and all that, you know, what females gut feeling, anybody's gut feeling is normally right, and mine was. So that ended, but for a year after it, my youngest kept asking when we were going to get married, and that broke my heart. For a full year, then I decided to change my whole life, I suppose. Then we went into lockdown, and yeah, it's been a lot the last few years. So 6 years on, and I'd consider the possibility, but I don't know, I still don't know. It's not that I'm not over him, I'm well and truly over him now, and I have been for the last couple of years, but I like to take time for me. I've never been one that within a month I'm with somebody else. I've always taken, but I suppose that stems from a lot of my relationships that have ended because of really crappy situations. And I like to process everything, because I would never take that situation into another relationship, or if I still love somebody, if I was still in love with somebody, I wouldn't start a relationship with somebody else feeling that for the previous person, because I don't think that's fair. You're kind of misleading someone in that way. I've went right off on a tangent, haven't I? So, my point is, there's no time limit. It's not, well, you split up a room last weekend, you can go and find somebody this weekend. If you do, that's amazing. Listen, everything happens for a reason in my eyes. And if you touch hands with somebody on a cucumber in Asda, other supermarkets are available, you do you. Like, if that feels electrifying and whatever else you want to say, then that might be the person for you. And people come into our lives at different times for different reasons. But if you want to process it and you want to take time to go through it, do that. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And again, if you decide that you need therapy because of it, have therapy. Listen, therapy can be amazing. It can, like I said earlier on, sometimes you go to therapy for one thing and you realise a few other things or a multitude of other things that have been going on in your head and you've not even realised it because it's been stored so far back. And it can be very, what's the word I want to say? Empowering, going to therapy because you are gaining your power back that you maybe have lost because of the way you've been feeling or certain situations. And it can be a big weight off your shoulders. And just having somebody who you know isn't judging you, regardless of what you say. I mean, you can say you've done the worst thing in the world and that person is not going to judge you. But also they're not going to tell you that you have to do this or you have to do that. They may give suggestions, but it'll be suggestions where you can decide if you want to try that or do that. And you can, it also means that you're only seeing them each appointment, so you're not seeing them every day, so you're not worried that they're going to come out in front of somebody and say something that you've been keeping a secret. They're not going to tell everybody. Listen, enjoy that therapy. You take your power back. Oh, the neighbour's out. Hold on. She's got bedding in her hand. What day is this? Wednesday? I mean, it's a bit early because it's normally the weekend. I'll keep you posted. Do you think she heard me talking about her? That would be funny. Oh, it's not bedding, it's towels. I lied. It's a massive towel, maybe. I don't know what it is. Anyway, I've got off topic again. See, I'm easily distracted. That was always on my report card. Easily distracted. Every time it came to parents' night at school. Aileen can do the work, but she's easily distracted. Aileen was never allowed to sit next to anybody in class. Well, when it came to like maths and English or in primary school, not much, because I would either get distracted by what everybody else was doing or I would start up a conversation and then the bell would go and I've done nothing. Some things never change. I don't know that I'd want it to change, because if I didn't get distracted then I wouldn't have seen the neighbours out and I couldn't have gave you an update. So I see a positive in everything. Have you noticed that? Like the silver linings and everything, all that. And the fact that I used to talk non-stop at school, maybe that was a clue that I was meant to be talking for the rest of my life. In work, in personal life, whatever. I do. My son does say I talk too much. He won't go to the shops with me because I'll say I'm just running in for, say, milk. So I run in for the milk and then I'm in there for like an hour and a half. But in my defence, if people didn't talk to me first, well, that's a lie. But, right, I'm digging another hole. If people didn't either talk to me first or talk back, like continue the conversation, if you just say hi to me, then we wouldn't be there for an hour and a half. But if you say hi, oh, how are you? Oh, but did you see, did you hear? And then the conversation goes, that technically isn't my fault. If they asked me a question and I answered it and then it went into conversation, is that my fault? Answers on a postcard. So that was about if you're grieving. If you know somebody else that's grieving, you want to be keeping an eye on them. Help them as much as possible. If it's somebody that's lost a relative that's close to them or a friend close to them and they've got small children, maybe offer to help with the kids. You could maybe make dinner for them, invite them over for dinner, try and kind of take their mind away from the situation, but not to make them forget altogether, just to give them a bit of breathing time. Advise them to maybe take some time off work if they're working too hard. Some people put their everything into work when they're grieving because they think that that's going to help, and it may do for some people, but for the majority of people it won't. It just means that it's going to catch up with you at some point. So it's looking out for each other, like I say every week. Be kind, be mindful, look out for each other, help each other as much as you can. There's nothing better than knowing that you've got a support system. If you've got people round about you who are going to support you, be there for you, then you've almost won the lottery, because not everybody's got that. If you think about the poor souls on the street that maybe don't have anybody, or you've got somebody that they've got no family, they've maybe been an only child and their parents have passed away, or you've got some people in care homes, like elderly and young, that have maybe been they've maybe lost all their family because they're a bit older, and obviously we don't know how long any are going to live. I've known people that have passed away very young, old, like every kind of, I don't know how to put it, every sort of age group. I've almost known somebody that's part of all of them, and it's sad, and I don't think one age group is necessarily sadder than the other, because it's always sad, but obviously if it's children, it's heartbreaking, but also it'll affect different people in different ways. Again, going back to, it depends what bond you've got with that person, what kind of relationship you've got with them, how it'll affect you compared to how it'll affect the wee guy down the road. I'm not going to make this one as long, because obviously, as I said at the beginning, get a few things going on. Need to check in with my mum and my wee auntie Rosie, see how they are, and my cousins and things, see how everybody's getting on. But if you are grieving or going through any sort of situation just now that I've not spoke about today, and you do think that you might need a wee bit of help, there's many charities online that you can look up online, their details. You've got your GP. Your GP can refer you for therapy, counselling, whatever you might need. I know there are long waiting lists. If you can afford it, sometimes private therapy is the way forward, because they don't tend to have as long waiting lists. Obviously, I know I say all the time, but a wee plug for my business. I am a private therapist, private counsellor, private coach, and I can help no matter what country you're in, because we've obviously got technology now that we didn't have when I was young, which means I can do video calls, I can do phone calls, we can do it on WhatsApp, we can do it on Zoom. There's different things, there's different options. But what I was going to say, so if you do need somebody to talk to, make sure you speak to somebody. If you don't want to do face-to-face, then one of the charities or private therapy might be the one to go with, because they'll have more options for you. Normally, if it's one of the charities online, they're over the phone. They wouldn't necessarily see you face-to-face. A lot of it's phone calls. I'm not saying all of them are. There may be ones that will see you face-to-face, but a lot of them will be phone calls. Like I said, I can, and most private therapists will as well, offer phone calls, video calls, or face-to-face. Obviously, with myself, face-to-face is depending where you live. I also offer an initial phone consultation, which is absolutely free. That can last for about 20 minutes to half an hour, some longer, some shorter. It just depends on the person on the other end of the phone. And that gives you a chance to tell me about you, me to tell you about me. And you also get a feel of whether you think you might be able to open up to myself. Because if you can't open up, there's no point in continuing, because you're not really going to get much out of it. You're maybe better off looking elsewhere. And I don't take offence if you do go elsewhere, so just putting that out there. Now, I've got something to share with you. I've set up a Patreon account. If you don't know what Patreon is, it's like another social media, and you can have paid subscribers on it. So I am thinking for the paid subscribers that, one, you will get to see a behind the scenes when we start visually recording. You'll get live interaction throughout the week as well, maybe, and we might also do some prizes either weekly or monthly. I'm not 100% sure how that one's going to work yet, but if you do have any ideas or any suggestions, write into any of my social medias. As I've said before, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and it's just Reboot Your Thoughts Podcast on all. And then if you want emailing, it's rebootyourthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. I also have Linktree. I think it should be on all social media, and that will take you everywhere. I'm also, like I said before, I'm going to start visual recording as well, so that will go on YouTube. So if you want to follow my YouTube, again, it's just Reboot Your Thoughts Podcast. And hopefully we'll get all that started soon. Do you have any questions? Because we could do a Q&A on YouTube sometime. If that's something you'd be interested in, then yeah, we could do that. Or maybe that could be part of the Patreon, like once a week or once a month I could do a Q&A with you. Different things. I'm still work in progress. Story of my life. Everything's a work in progress. Now, I thought you had a funny story to tell you, although it wasn't really funny at the time. I don't think I've told you this one before. So, going off topic, this has nothing to do with grief. I definitely did not grieve this person. I think he wishes he was grieving me, mind you. And I mean, fully gone, fully not here anymore. How many of you have tried... I've just found an eyelash. Sorry, distracted again. How many of you have tried online dating? Hence it's on a postcard. So, I thought I'd try it. About, I don't even know how many years ago it was. Many years ago. I was always against it. And then one of my friends, who kind of loved it, she was like, it's not as bad as that. And because I just had visions of everybody being axe murderers. My vision was kind of right. So this particular person, now bearing in mind, he's not the only person I spoke to on there. And I have made a few really good friends through the online dating. Never dated them, just ended up being really good friends with them. So this particular person, the best way to describe him is Jekyll and Hyde. It's the only way I can think about describing him. There's like nothing else. So he seemed really nice to start off with. I mean, for the first few weeks he was so nice and so attentive. Now bearing in mind we were only talking, we were talking online, then it obviously went on to talking on text or phone calls or whatever, and he was really nice. And he kept asking me to go on a date, and just something, again there's my gut feeling, was telling me do not go on a date with this guy. But at the same time there was something still there, and that's me with my I can fix everybody and I love a bad boy. Bad boys do not write in, because I am over that phase, I think. So, got talking to him, and then one of my friends was wanting to buy a car. She just passed her driving test. And he just so happened to be selling cars. So he says, I'll bring her over and I'll see if I've got anything that she likes. And I says, now, have any of you clicked onto what he was doing here yet? I didn't, because I am blonde. So he said, bring her over, see if I've got anything that she might like. So he goes over and we goes into this I can just call it it was almost, it's like a yard. So there was like the big main building, and then there was cars here, there and everywhere, and blah blah blah. And so yeah, we drives in, and then he shut the gate behind us. Oh my god, the two of us crapped ourselves. I was going to say something else there, but I need to be nice. I need to watch my P's and Q's today. So the two of us just looked at each other, and I was like, he's just locked that gate. And we kind of laughed, but at the same time, I'm like, what the hell? I mean, the two of us can kind of defend ourselves, and between the two of us, we would have, don't know what we would have done to him, but he wouldn't have been standing. Anyhow, so it turns out he was the only person there, and he's shown us around about this whole yard, and I mean, it was nothing to be writing home about, but that was fine, do you know what I mean? Showing us about, and then he was showing all the cars and whatever else. And then I was just getting a feeling of just getting agitated, the two as well, and I was like, we need to go. And I was like, I need to go and get the kids for school. I mean, it was still morning. How you believe that, I don't bloody know. And he's like, alright, okay. So we leaves, and obviously he's trying to like smack the lips on me. And I'm like, oh my god, how did I get out of this? So that was fine. We drove away. So that was the beginning of the week. And then he wanted to go on a date on the Friday. But I was ill by the Friday. I had tonsillitis, which I used to get all the time. I had like so many things wrong with me. My whole body was run down. I still had quite a bit of an eating disorder at this point as well. So that wasn't helping matters. So yeah, that was interesting. So anyhow, in between, we were talking through the week and whatever else. And then it came to the Friday, and I couldn't go, because I was ill. I was in my bed, I was sweating, I was this, and it was supposed to be a daytime date, which, yeah, that's absolutely fine. And bearing in mind, he's been so nice up until now, right? Then he phoned me, but I never heard the phone because I'd been sleeping during the day, because, like I said, I was ill. He left this venomous voice message about how I was this and you're that and you're the next thing, and how dare you do this to me and blah blah. And bear in mind, I told him we had no definite plans. We never said we were definitely going. It was a possibly. But obviously I couldn't talk on the Friday because I was sleeping and I was ill and I was whatever, so we never made any plans. I took the day off work. He wasn't working anyway. He was talking crap. Anyhow, so that went on and on and on. And when I finally spoke to him, I was like, who do you think you're talking to? Like, don't even try that one with me. That doesn't wash with me. Then it was, oh, babe, I'm so sorry. And he was being all so nice and nicey. And then within an hour, he flipped again. And then it was being nice. And then my friend that went to look at the car, she was on the phone, and I had like she was on the house phone, and I had the mobile on loudspeaker to let her hear what he was saying, and he was screaming at me down the phone again. And she's like, who does he think he is? So that was fine. I just thought, just ignore him now. Well, he would ring my mobile, hang up, ring my house phone, hang up, ring the mobile, hang up, and this went on for a full weekend. Then told me that he was going to find where I lived, and he was going to burn my house down with me in it, and that blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh my god. So I told a few people what was happening, and they were keeping an eye on the house and keeping an eye on me and the boys and making sure we were all right. So that was fine. That was, I think, the November. And then round about, now he gave up after a while. He gave up after, I think, 2 weeks. Then the March or the April the following year, so like 4 months, something like that afterwards, he was on the front page of the paper. He had just been to court because he tried to murder. Well, the full charges were he kidnapped, tried to murder, and he also raped a girl because she told him she didn't want to be with him. That could have been me. Now, somebody was clearly looking out for me that it never happened to me. He clearly is psychotic in some sort of way, or just plain evil. I don't know, because I wasn't hanging around to find out. So yeah, he got like 8 years or something like that for that. I mean, I hope he doesn't listen to this, because I don't want him to come and hunt me down again. But yeah, it just goes to show that people aren't always what they portray themselves to be initially. So he was portraying himself to be this really nice guy, and that shutting the gate kind of gave us an insight to maybe he's not as nice as what he was trying to make us believe. Yeah, I definitely don't think that would have been a great relationship. I'm glad I listened to my gut, because there's times where I don't, but I've learned over the years that my gut instinct's normally right. But we always live in hope, don't we? We sometimes so we think such and such about a person, and they won't actually be like that. So there's another reason to listen to your gut. So that wasn't quite a funny story, but I laugh about it now. I do laugh about it now. I wasn't necessarily laughing at the time, and we were all in shock when we read that story on the front page of the paper. We're like, what the hell? Yeah, that's my dating disasters. Like, I could write a book of what not to do when dating, or who not to date. And we had a running, me and one of my friends were joking about how there'll be a few people out there that might be worried about me starting up the podcast, because they might be worried about what I might say. I don't kiss and tell, don't worry. You don't come for me, I won't come for you. And that's just the way it is. And if you do come for me, I've got plenty of lawyers waiting. But yeah, so Aileen's dating disasters could take up a full season, let alone a full episode. Remember I said to you a couple of episodes ago we could do a podcast of Aileen's disastrous adult life. Yeah, that would go on for a while. But maybe the next time we get Ainsley on, because I think she's coming on for something or other soon, me and her will tell you about our stories from our younger days. And in actual fact, me and my cousin were just laughing about a story. I don't know if I've told you this one before. This one is hilarious. So do you remember when you might not have been all as daft as or as wild as what we were. You might have behaved. We didn't. We were, I think, 14, 15. We would have been round about that. And we were pretending we were going to stay with one of our friends that stayed along the street. And she was pretending she was coming to stay with us. I used to go and stay with Matty Rosemary every holiday, every weekend when I was a teenager, and me and my cousin were inseparable. So yeah, we were kidding on that we were going to stay with Stephanie. Stephanie said she was coming to stay with us. And we went camping with the boys in a graveyard. Now, I had never went camping before in my life. And I know Angela hadn't, and I don't think Stephanie had it either. So we were obviously depending on the boys. Now, we went camping just ourselves, like, we had no camping equipment. We had no tents, no sleeping bags, so we were relying on the boys to take all that with them. We were clearly all as drunk as skunks. The boys did indeed have camping equipment. One boy had fell drunk, banged his head off one of the gravestones. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing, but I'm laughing. So he banged his head on one of the gravestones. None of us knew how to find a pulse, so we're all feeling his neck and going, nah, there's no pulse, he's dead. And then the next thing, he stands up. He stood up. I don't think he was standing for 30 seconds and done the exact same thing again. And then when we get into the tents, I get put in the tents with the ones that didn't shut up all night. One of them, he was always trying to, he just wanted me and him to be together forever, I think, and that wasn't happening, and that wasn't my vision for my future. So I had him, Aileen, all night. One guy was in the tent, one of the boys was in the tent. He slept right through everything. I don't know how he managed it. So there was me and Stephanie in a tent with 3 or 4 other boys that we were all friends with. One was Stephanie's boyfriend. I didn't have a boyfriend at the time. My cousin, she was in a tent with a couple of other girls, her boyfriend and a couple of other boys, and we were all just having a laugh and whatever. I woke up in a puddle with a tent on top of me. I mean, I think I slept about 30 minutes, but that was hilarious that night. It was one of the ones you had to be there. But yeah, that's my wild days. I think I might reenact them. A mother that tells her children she's going to the shops and comes back a week later. She's went to Ibiza. I mean, you hear about that in the news, don't you? But at least my children are grown. They're not babies. And I would never do it anyway. But yeah, I said I wasn't going to make this podcast as long this week, and we're not far off it. But I'm going to leave it at that for now. If you do want to contact me about therapy, or if you want to give any suggestions for the Patreon or for the podcast even, you can get me on the social media pages or email freebootyourthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. And I will be back next week, and hopefully my voice will sound a bit better and I'll have a bit more chat. If I need to change the day of next week's podcast, I'll put it on social media and let you know, obviously, because I don't know when funerals and things will be. But I'll try and still get it out for the same time on the Wednesday. But take care and enjoy your week, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye.